right, guys, just let me confirm that we are actually live and on time, and we're a minute early, which is crazy for us. Usually at least a few minutes late. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Crossfire, episode 50, major milestone. 50 is a big deal. So we have a special guest, but before I introduce that special guest, let's recognize our sponsors. We have Garage Door Guys in KC, Brian Kerner. Thank you very much for your support. And of course, as always, we have Arm Assassin Strength Shop. And there's a promo code, Arm Crossfire, for 5% off. You guys take advantage of that. We have to mention our Alpha Patreon members, Zane William Nisley, Jeff Franken, Bruce Willis. And while I hit that we will use light profanity today only over on the monetization section, let's introduce our special guest, Mr. Mike Gould. We have this is a big deal for me because, I mean, Mike, you represent my origins in the sport, and a guy that I always looked up to and was one of my first major challenges in the sport. But before we get into talking about any of that, let's talk about the origin of Mike Gould. First of all, welcome to the show, Mike. How's it going?
Hey, thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for having me on the show. All is good, really. Loving the great weather, and yeah, everything's pretty good. Despite, it's been a tough year so far with the COVID and everything, but it's all is well.
And for those that are paying attention, you guys would have seen that we ran into each other in Porterville Prairie, Manitoba about a week ago when you were passing through.
Yeah.
So it was great to see you, but let's get into it. Like the history of Mike Gould. You ended up, what year did you start? And if I'm not mistaken, you're considerably lighter than you are for the majority of your arm wrestling career.
That's true. I started about 88, and actually I was quite big when I started. I was weighing about 265 when I started. My first tournament, there was a little tournament in Tweed I went to, and it was a great little event and stuff, but I mean, it was very, very, very amateur. And then I was actually there with a couple good friends of mine, Troy and Richard Snyder. But anyway, from there, it was a couple years later, an event came up in Markham. It was the truck show, and I showed up, and I thought I was strong. I was a strong boy, but I thought I was going to do my thing that day. And one of my matches was with Gary, and I thought, I'll whoop that guy, man. There is no way he is going through my arm. And I found out that day I knew absolutely nothing about arm wrestling. I was pretty much useless. So it was fun. After that, I actually met up with a bunch of guys. I was very fortunate, though. I met up with the Port Perry Arm Wrestling team, a great bunch of guys. Mike Haig, Pat Mastrangelo, Garth, Rick Irwin, Johnny Roberts, Terry Barton, Dan Wells. So those guys invited me out, and oh boy, it took me. I was a slow learner. It took me forever. It took me a long time, but in that transition, I realized I wasn't going to be a great super heavyweight out the gate, so I dieted, and I competed in the 98s for a long time.
I did not know that you actually started as a super heavyweight and then went down to 198.
Yeah, I was 265. And,
how much success did you have going all the way back down under 200 pounds?
You know what? I did pretty good. I mean, again, I was brand new, so it took a long time, right? But I eventually got to be, competitive, I guess would be the word. I actually competed one tournament at 187 in Swift Current, Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
And there was a There was a gentleman there. I wish I could tell you his name, and I can't. I had pictures of him, and I used to know his name, but I've forgotten. But we had a great left-handed match, and I did beat him. Anyway, long time ago.
I don't know what's more shocking to me, that you were 187 or that you were in Swift Current, Saskatchewan.
Well, they're both quite shocking.
I've been there once, and let me tell you, I could definitely not go back.
Yeah, exactly.
I've been there for events.
Swift
I'm
so.
actually looking. Gobby, are we live? Or is there a glitch here that's going on?
I have live. It says you are currently live on my screen.
Okay, perfect.
Same here. Says that on mine as well.
Yeah, it has in the top left corner live pumping up and down that.
Oh, okay, excellent. Good. Here we are. I'm just pulling it up on my other screen, so if you guys get feedback on this, I apologize for that.
Okay.
It says waiting for Arm Crossfire. Okay, well, we might end up jumping in here live, but we might just end up with a recorded episode as well. So it is what it is, guys. We'll do what we can. It's saying we're live.
So from that point on, between training and possibly, I think a lot of guys, there's always a training issue and you gain some muscle and everything, but I also think there's always a little bit of laziness. It's easier to gain weight than it is lose weight. So 198 started being difficult for me. I started walking around 210, 215, and I'd creep up. I was 225. So I ended up competing in the 220s for a long time. And I actually won my first world championship at 220. So
where did that happen, and what year was that?
That was in 1994 in Sweden.
Wow!
And it was a great deal for me. Never really set in. I felt it was pretty much luck. On one hand, I was like, "Oh, that just kind of fluked out." But I do remember coming down to the finals, and it was a guy from it was a competitor from Russia that had won a couple years prior, and it was me and him in the finals. So it was I guess really it was a pretty big deal.
Yeah, for sure. So moving on from that, I guess okay, good. We're for sure live because Uncle John's chiming in. Mikel Gould is the arm wrestler I want to be when I grow up. He says. Jonathan Thompson.
Thank you, Jonathan.
So we're moving on from that, and you mentioned when did you win your next world title?
Well, the next one came in '99 in Tokyo, and it was it was a little more special in the sense that it took the luck out of it for me. I realized I won that one, and it taught me a lot. That whole trip was a real learning curve. Eric Wolfell and myself had a great match in '96 in Virginia Beach. I beat him, and then in the finals he beat me twice. And I had trained, I got stronger. We met up in Japan, and I knew, I thought, oh, this is going to be easy for me. And we went to the table, and he killed me. He beat me easily first match. I was I was what the hell. So anyways, it was sort of just a reversal. Then I beat him twice in the finals to win the left-hand division. And just had to get a plan together. And I'll be honest, I'll always remember Dave Hicks and me talked, and he gave me some advice and everything. So it was a learning curve. And in the right hand that day, I'll always tell anybody I speak to about it, I feel like I should have won the right hand division. I was in the finals with a big competitor from Japan.
Yoshi Kanai's older brother, I think.
That's exactly. You're exactly right. And I had full control. We hit the go boom, had his hand in the driver's seat, couldn't pin his arm. So I, being patient, I positioned a bit, hung on, tried it a couple times. And I thought, now I'm going to pin it. It's time. I'm whatever it takes. I'm going to pin this arm. And he dropped in and shoulder pressed me, and it was all over. It was like, wow. It taught me a bit there. So a little too patient.
Yeah. So you end up doing that, which is,
Still, it was a gold and a silver. I mean, I had no complaints, and we had a super good time. But I felt like it was mine for the taking that day. But on the same hand, I learned some valuable lessons.
So over the years, you have arm wrestled just about everybody. Any rivalries to speak of that you found more challenging than others, or that you were your favorites, or guys you like to run into?
Well, you see, it depends on whether it's more international or Canadian. In Canada, I mean, we've got our regular guys, yourself, Earl Wilson. Man, Earl and myself arm wrestled so many times. And when you span that over 20 years, or probably more than 20 years, you can't help but it changes. Sometimes he's training hard, sometimes I am. Occasionally we both are. Occasionally we're both not. So it was always interesting. I mean, obviously early days I was pretty dominant with him. Then after he came around for a while, and I mean, he was so far ahead of me. He's just one of the strongest dudes out there.
Well, Earl has a very similar kind of coming up in the sport. Didn't he start at around 220 pounds and then move his way up to super heavyweight as well?
Yeah, exactly. He did.
Yeah. Well, I remember our first encounter was 1997 in Kelowna.
Yeah.
And I kind of got put in my place a little bit there.
Well, you know what though? On that note, you were new, and
oh yeah,
I think it was one of your, I think Miles maybe, one of the guys there come to me and take it easy. It's new guy and this and that. I was like, listen, man, how easy are you going to take it at the Nationals of BC? It's
Well, he was, I showed up there less than 1 year into the sport. So I started arm wrestling. My first event was, I think, in May of that year. And by September, we were at the national championships. And I had missed provincials, so they got me in there somehow. But I got my beats. And Miles said to me, "Do you want to pull that?" There was a novice class. And I said I'd rather be last place in the open division than first place in the novice.
Absolutely.
So, and that's exactly what happened.
And then we met up many times after that, Ryan, and we've had some good matches over the years. And obviously, you've worked hard, and you've done your homework. You're not the guy today, that's for sure, that you were then. So
yeah, we've all moved forward, and it's been an adventure, and I'm sure we have many more matches left to go.
Oh, I'm sure we'll meet up. Yeah, I have some issues. My right struggles. My right hand's all busted up, and arthritis and a mess, and this and that. But I don't know. Sometimes I can train through it a bit. And my arm's okay. It's just my hand. My hand's tough. So.
Yeah. How about the left arm? How are you feeling with the left arm?
A little bit of left shoulder issues, but I mean, for the most part, it's fine. Left feels good, and it's halfway healthy, and it's I'm not far off. I feel like I could compete with anybody in Canada, basically left-handed. So
easily, Mike.
Yeah. Well, I think so. I don't know about easily, but we'd do some work and do our best.
Yeah. So let's get into the Mikel Gould Classic, which was the premier event for a long time in Canada.
Yeah, it was my baby, really. What I struggled financially is, I think anybody does putting on a big tournament. It's difficult to get sponsors, especially cash. Everybody wants to give you some gifts and some prizes, but when you're trying to put on a pro event, it's nice to have that stuff. But I mean, it's the cash is the hard part. So I want to say I funded it myself. I did always have. There was 2 or 3 guys that stood up every year, really. Guy Windover helped out every year. Steve French, Toronto, helped out years. Yeah, it was a great event, but it started out and it just sort of bloomed. I think we hit what people were looking for at the time. We tried to offer a little something for everybody. We ended up having the kids and the masters and the amateurs, and then eventually it grew. So we had a 2-day event, and the second day were the pros, and tried to give out nice awards and a bit of money for everybody, and it just seemed to be a good recipe. Everybody at one point, we had people traveling from everywhere, and it was sure a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah. And I took a lot of shit for waiting until the final year of it to show up there.
I was busting you. I was busting you early years. It's like, what the hell? I'm putting everything I got into this, and you're not showing up.
Yeah, it was always something. There was always some stupid thing that came up. But now, if I'm not mistaken, the final year was actually UAL 9.
Yeah, well, so I held the event in Oshawa for many years, and that eventually that changed, and we moved to Toronto, and I was very fortunate. As you all know, anybody that puts on an event, it's hard to get support. It's hard to get somebody to back you a little bit. And I met a good friend of mine today, Phil, and we started holding the events at the Loaded Dog in Toronto. And Phil made the whole second half of the whole, I guess, what do you want to call it? The second half of the Mike Gould Classics possible, and with some money and a great venue, and then as it progressed, the last couple of years, Robert Drank become involved, and he helped out as well. And then the last year was a pretty big show. I thought it was a great event, great super match card, great tournament, and a really nice venue. So we decided that was it when it was over, because how are you going to top that?
Well, I mean, you got Berzink versus Mask, yourself versus Lupke's, Baxter versus Yannick,
RVJ
versus Ford.
Well, that was a good match too. Jeez, that was a great match.
Bruce Buffer.
Yeah, between Bruce and John, I mean, John did a great job. John Milne on the mic. I mean, he does a great job, but it was very cool having Buffer introduce everybody. I mean, it's hard to beat that.
Yeah, that was awesome.
John Milne commentating. He always does a great job on the mic. So, I mean, it was a great event, and a real good venue. If anybody recalls, like, we had seating for everybody, and it was a nice place, good stage, food, drinks. I mean, it had really, I felt like it was a great event.
Yeah, I had an amazing day at that.
Yeah, you did. You beat Sylvain that day. You super strong. You look great.
Yeah, fond memories of that one.
Yeah. So I would have liked to continue, but I mean, it's difficult too with all all the big professional leagues. Well, I guess I don't know how many, but WAL and I think WAL is doing a great job. But really, I mean, it's a show, right? It's a TV show, I guess, basically the way they run it. I think you're doing a great job, but you've got so many of the top athletes contracted, and I mean, it made it a lot more difficult to run open tournaments. I mean, you're not going to be able to get those big guys showing up.
Yeah, that's an interesting dynamic, isn't it? With what do you think of the contracts and all that kind of stuff?
Well, I guess if you're one of those guys that are active, always active, the contract's probably not a bad deal. I know a few guys that's on a contract and they've arm wrestled once or twice in the last couple of years, and I mean they probably won't for another year or so. To me, that wouldn't work for me. But I'm not really as mainstream as some of the competitors, So, like for me, a contract is just like I got to go do whatever for one, whatever I can, and the other, whatever I want. If somebody calls me up and says, "Hey, do you want to have a match here or there?" I mean, at this point in my game, I got to be able to say, "Hell yes." So,
yeah. That's a decision I'm wrestling with at the moment without getting into any details. But now you pulled for Igor. You've obviously pulled a Vendetta.
yep.
How was that experience?
You know what? It was amazing. I was not very successful. Personal life had a lot of stuff going on and everything. Not that. And of course it was a last minute call, but very, very good event. Very, very well run, and had a great time. I loved it. It was
Who did you pull in that last Vendetta?
Jan Jovinsky, I believe is his name, and left-handed. But first of all, tough competitor. He was super strong and a great guy. I will say that. I didn't have any training, and my personal life was taking a big hit. It's all, you can call it excuses, whatever, but it's just the way it is. I'd love to have that match over again today. So,
well, it's almost the opposite of excuses. Like guys that will just show up when they're called. That's a different breed of arm wrestler than some of the ones we're seeing today that need 6 months notice.
Well, I suppose on that aspect, I mean,
yeah.
I guess that's true too. But again, it's hard to say no when somebody calls. It's, I mean, I knew going into it, I was not at my best, that's for sure. But it was a great opportunity and a lot of fun.
Yeah. Mr. Gabi, what you got?
Reverting back to the Mikel Classic, just a little bit of some of my highlights. In 2004, I remember Mike the amateur class, which was my first tournament, had 2.5-foot trophies for amateurs. And then as the amateur and the pro tournament ended, or I think there was a super match between Travis and Devin that year, and Travis beat Devin. And then being in Oshawa, Travis started trash talking, and I remember this vividly. Crazy George comes out of the crowd, 170 pounds, and says, "Let's go on the table." So now you have Travis and George on the table, and you had a couple refs get up there, and George beats Travis, and of course everyone in that room was going crazy. But even more specifically, there was a match in the 198 left, the finals between Jeff King and Eric Hussein. If anyone who knows Jeff King, he suffered a stroke just I think maybe a year or two prior, maybe more. But basically didn't have much control of his right hand, and Eric was like stoic and chiseled, and I'm thinking to myself, this guy's going to kill Jeff. And of course he hit Jeff 2 inches from a pin, and Jeff stopped it. Of course Jeff, roughly from the area, or from something like that, Kingston maybe, or Kitchener. And anyway, the fans just started, people getting on chairs and tables cheering Jeff. And I mean, he ended up winning it, and I'm thinking to myself, and this was my first introduction to arm wrestling, and I'm thinking to myself, what a fucking sport. Like, of course, my introduction was a Mikel Classic tournament, which is not the template when you compare it to like state tournaments and stuff like that. And of course, in 2008, Mike had the tournament. I think it was his biggest. Amateur was giving out gym bags and awesome trophies. Embroidered Mikel Classic on the gym bag, which is awesome. And then I think it was $1,200 cash for first, $800 for second. And that one got in Ron Bath, John Brezink, Travis was there. But that was probably in 2008 his biggest, 8 or 9, I forget. But that was his biggest event. But yeah, for me, the Mikel Classic was my introduction, and most of my highlights come from that event. Back when it was in Oshawa, not so much the Loaded Dog in Toronto. But I thank Mike for sacrificing and having that tournament, because let me tell you, I haven't seen too many like that especially earlier in my career. And every year, that was the highlight of my training, was to prepare for the Mikel Gould Classic and bring down a team of guys. And yeah, unbelievable stuff.
I appreciate it. Yeah. Yeah, there was many years. I remember too that day you spoke of with George and Travis. That was fun. There was a few of those. There was always there'd be a match here and there going on, but a lot of upsets, a lot of surprises.
Yeah.
But it was always fun, and yeah, we were fortunate enough to bring in all those big names. I mean, Ron and Devin's super match too was, you got to be one of the best super matches. In the history. I mean, it was so competitive, and there were so many over the years. We had Marcio up. We had I don't know. I can't even remember without looking over some notes and stuff. But basically, brought in competitors from all over the world. We had Australia, France, Russia, Turkey.
Yeah. Pat Mastrangelo beating Engen Terzi in 2004 or 5, maybe 5.
Yeah.
But Engen pulled multiple classes, and
He pulled everything.
Pat was a bad dude in the early 2000s, a really bad dude. So I thought that was fucking awesome. Yeah. You had Sylvain Perron stopping John Brzezinski and giving John a 1-minute war, again, in maybe 2008, 9-ish, something like that. Everyone going crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that day. That was a great match with him and John, with Sylvain and John. And you also, I don't know if it was the same day or if it was a different event, but Sylvain and Garvin had the same. Sylvain and Garvin Lewis had a war, and great match as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was a different. Was it? Yeah, I think that was the year after, but it was something like that. That was huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah, that's a lot of you stay in touch with all of these guys. Mike, I gotta assume that you're still in touch with Pat. Are we gonna see returns from any of these guys at all in the future, or has there been talk about it?
Local stuff here, you see them out occasionally, and I do talk to them. I mean, we don't talk every day or nothing, but Mike Haig and Pat and Garth, we talk every day. Oh, and of course John, and we talk, every little while. We try to get together. We try to get together once a year or something. Dave Drum ran an event here in Bowmanville a few months ago. Lucky enough, he got it in before COVID-19 hit. But all the guys were there, and Rick Irwin was out. It was great to see Rick Irwin. Now he hasn't trained or done a thing in years, but Rick Irwin used to be tough, a super tough bowler, and just great to see the guys out. But yeah, we stay in touch for sure.
Nice. So World Arm Wrestling League phones you tomorrow and says, "Hey, we need to do a card. We can't get into Canada. We need you to put it on and call it the Mikel Gould Classic. Are you in?"
Oh, again, it's always hard to say no to things, right? For me, I guess you'd have to see what's going on. Who's doing what, what event, what league, what kind of event they're looking for, really.
Yeah. Well, because I believe that the World Arm Wrestling League will go on as scheduled, but I don't necessarily believe there's going to be any international competitors at the first, Canada included, at the first one or two of those. So we might be looking at an all USA event. Jerry might get his match with Michael Todd after all, ahead of Devin. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's a good point, right? I never even thought of that, but the international travel is going to be, I don't see a lot going on this year, really. And I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Worlds.
Are you talking about the Worlds in Florida?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The Worlds in Orlando.
We haven't heard a damn thing from WAF at all. So there's been no communication. But yeah, the Worlds in Orlando.
I mean, they could end up going, but I don't know what kind of international travel you're going to have. I mean, it's September, so it's out. It's still a ways out, but it could be affected strongly.
I have to assume that it's not going to be quite the caliber that we're used to seeing. It'll be a huge North American event.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's too bad because for me, I was planning to go, but as it turned out, I won't be regardless. I have a hernia surgery booked September 2nd. So, I mean, obviously I'm not going, but, I just love the idea of being in Orlando. For me at this point in my game, it's a lot to do with the destination and, looking to have some fun, looking for a getaway and, looking for some good competition and a great event, but it's got to be a good destination. So,
yeah, I'm kind of in the same. I'm kind of looking at it the same way you are, and going back to places I've been isn't the most appealing thing in the world to me. And a good destination for the family would be amazing because I now
yeah, Orlando was so appealing.
Yeah.
So,
well, what else you got going on? How are you keeping up with training when during the whole pandemic thing? Like, are you based out of your house for most of it, or were you relying on a gym?
no, you know what? I'm really fortunate. I've got a pretty decent setup here at home. My biggest problem with training, aside from a couple health things, is that I'm on the road a lot. I'm usually gone anywhere from a week to 3 weeks, and then I'm home a couple days, and then I'm gone again. So, I used to train practically every day, and I used to like to get to the gym too for a few workouts, but I train hard every day, and now I train twice a month, so it's not the same. It's not the same, but I am fortunate. I got a decent setup here at home, so whenever I'm home, I get a few workouts in. Yeah.
Yeah, as suspected, we are having problems with the live stream. Some people are getting in, some people are not. But I mean,
really,
it'll post up after, so it is what it is.
Yeah. And what about yourself? What's next for you?
I have no idea, man. So I'm staying ready to a certain point.
Yep.
And I have not officially, well, I can't announce the one, like we both were talking to the same person recently about something happening in the fall, but there's not anything I can really announce yet. And I kind of don't want to announce anything anyway until we have a green light to actually travel and do stuff. Gob, are you okay?
Right.
I heard you cough there.
Yeah, I think it's syphilis, not COVID, so I think we're okay.
Okay, good. Yeah, I mean, there's Todd Hutchings assumes he's having a match with me and he's training for it already, and he made a video with Neil talking about that. So they haven't officially offered me that match, but he is at the point where he's made his YouTube reel of me to prepare. So I would need to assume that match is coming up at some point in the future.
Well, that'd be great then. You would think so.
Yeah. So I have.
It'd be nice if they'd give you that sort of official acknowledgement so you could start preparing.
The only problem with that is that I don't know that they can even give the guys that are already booked for 601 the official acknowledgement that this match is happening. So beyond 601, we could be everything's kind of up in the air, right?
Probably, yeah, because of travel, I'm sure.
Yeah. So by the time it all gets squished in, the 600 series might happen 6 events in succession for 6 Saturdays or for 6 weeks in a row.
Yeah, exactly.
Which, from a financial standpoint, would be fine for them because they wouldn't have to set up or tear down. They just leave everything where it is.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Well, it'd be a great match anyway for you. It's nice to get a big get a big match lined up. Hopefully for you, it works out and you can make it happen.
I feel like I'm in a position with the World Arm Wrestling League that I need to win the next match.
Yeah. And I don't love that matchup. I mean, you almost have to win that. You're expected to win, but then again, stylistically, he has an advantage over you. I think stylistically, you can take his hand, you can get your move, you can do everything you need, and you're still in a war. I'm not saying you can't win that. I know you've been working on your side pressure and shoulder stuff, so I think you're in that match. But that's not stylistically, that's not in your wheelhouse. I'm happy you're on the card finally, but I don't love them giving you that match. I would have preferred seeing you against Wagner left, Devin Wright, someone. I don't know. I don't love that matchup, but I mean, don't get me wrong. At least you got your foot in, and it's a start.
Yeah, I don't think Devin has any interest in having a match with me at the moment. Okay. Regardless, I mean, he's got his dance cards full anyway. He's got the monster right now, so he's got a bigger fish to fry at the moment, and we'll see what happens beyond that. But I mean, we saw what happened to Matt Mask. He had completely taken Todd's hand and wrist, and Todd doesn't care about that particular aspect of the sport. He'll give it away and just pin you with side pressure.
It's very difficult competing with a guy that doesn't need their hand. I mean, it's always nice if you keep your hand and everything. It's always a great advantage. But when you're competing against a guy that doesn't need it, it's tough because that's our, I mean, we always shoot for hand control and stuff like that, really. And you take that away.
That's a good point, Mike. But doesn't need his hand, refuses to give up, and has arguably the strongest side pressure in the history of our sport, or top three. So, I mean, I don't envy Ryan. I think Ryan's gains, and Ryan has more parts than more overall high-end horsepower than Matt does. So I think he's in this match. But by no means is this it's just going to be an easy day for Ryan.
No, of course. Ryan, have you pulled? I mean, I know you have, but I mean, I'm just not familiar. Have you pulled Matt?
It's been a long, long time since I pulled Matt in any official capacity. I have only ever lost one match to him, and it was actually a left-handed match when I was 240 pounds. He beat me once, and then and that was, I had beaten him, and then we met in the final, and he beat me once off the B side, and then I beat him the third time to win the tournament. That was at the Nationals in Timmins.
Oh, okay. So you did end up beating him left-handed in Timmins.
I did, yeah. So I beat him twice left-handed in Timmins when I was 240, and John Brzezinski can attest to that. Me at 240 and me at 340 are quite a bit different guy.
Of course. Yeah. Well, that's a big difference, right? So it makes sense.
Yeah, and man, with the right hand, just to give you an idea of how I really felt that day, not to take anything away from Yannick, but he basically controlled my right hand that day in Timmins.
Yeah.
I remember seeing that and I'm thinking to myself, because I'm in my career, I'm 1-0 versus Yannick right arm, and then you lost to Yannick, and I'm like, if so facto, I can beat Ryan Espy. It's funny how the sport works that way.
You can beat the anorexic version of Ryan Espy.
Yeah, go back in a time machine. 170, you at 240. It could be a good match right-handed.
Ryan, how did you feel though, health-wise? I mean, do you feel as good today as you did at 240 or even 250?
The sweet spot was around 280 to 320. So that's where I felt the best. 285, 290, I felt amazing.
Right.
When I went all the way down to 240, there was some starvation going on in there too, and I had to sacrifice because I had some goals, right? I wanted to jump up. So I basically strip muscle off of me to get down to 240 pounds.
Yeah. Well, you're not going to be as strong. I mean, there's no doubt. In my strongest days, I was over 300. But it's not a natural weight for me. I don't think I'm ever going to be a skinny guy, but when I get up over 310 plus, I'm feeling too heavy. Strength, if I'm training hard, my strength's good, but I'm too heavy. So anyway, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I'm not running any marathons at the weight I'm at, but I can certainly bike for
5 minutes.
More than 5 minutes, Gov. You'd be surprised, I think.
I'm kidding.
Well, that's pretty good anyway. Good. You're certainly, as long as you're feeling good, that's the main thing.
Yeah, and I'm going to continue to slowly cut down to somewhere in that 325 range for now.
Very good. Very good. That's a good weight. You've got to be strong there. 325 is not a small guy.
No, and I can skip leg day all I want. It's not going to really have that much of an effect on me.
That's it. Who do you think's the number one arm wrestler in the world today?
God, the easy answer is Levon, but I'm not sure that Michael Todd can't beat him.
Well, we're not sure. I pretty much, you can see how it's going to go. So it comes down to the question: would Levon muscle through him, or would the brakes come on? That guy's a beast, though. Like, he's impressive to me.
He's a giant guy.
He is big and super strong. And it impressed me there a while back. I watched a video of him doing chin-ups. I was like, holy Jesus. It's impressive.
I think Michael's going to take his hand and wrist. I believe that.
Could be. Do you think Michael will take Levon's hand?
Yep. Wow. Because I felt Levon's hand and wrist, and if anything, the wrist is his weak point. Gobby's man looking at me like I'm crazy, but
we felt his hand and wrist 2 years ago, man. He was just a baby in
the it's still there, Gobby. You watch his matches, it's still there. That lane is still open.
I don't doubt that, and especially as the match goes, if he can't finish off Mike, his hand will go back. Mike, as the match goes, he becomes, he'll fatigue every part of Levan. I can see that. Although I wouldn't really want to see it because I'd hate to see Levan lose to that move, but I think you make a strong point. Like, Mike could arguably be the best, but I'd love to see that match. But I'd like to see the results of that match. I don't know, depending on where the match went, but that's a good argument. But first, he's got Dave, right? So.
Well, it's interesting. Well, Dave could spoil the whole party, right? So if Dave beats Levon, then we don't even have this conversation anymore. Michael becomes number one.
Mm-hmm. I think Dave can. I'm a Dave. I'm definitely a Chafee fan, and I pulled with Dave here a couple years ago, and it was great. It was a great opportunity. He was just too strong for me. There's no doubt about it. And but I've watched him compete in some of those European events, and he's there with the ball. He's strong.
Here's my major concern with Dave, and this is like me taking an iota of information and applying it to an opinion that I now have. I've been watching a little bit of his training footage, and he has just adopted the exact same style where he will just grab onto the guy and pull him sideways. That strategy probably isn't going to be fruitful when he's going into a match with Levon.
Yeah, no, I can agree with you there. You've got to, I wouldn't be diving right into that arm, I don't think.
There needs to be at least some training. I hope he has a plan B if it doesn't work out. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I've learned over the years, and I mean, I'm not in that caliber, so don't misunderstand. I'm not suggesting that I would beat him by no means, but it doesn't matter who you're arm wrestling. And I think, some of my success over the years that I have had, you have to have a plan. You have to know your opponent, and you have to know what you're going to do to beat him. You have to know where he's going, where he's strong, and where he's weak, and you have to definitely have a plan to to get the job done. And sometimes just going up to the table with your A game and taking a swing isn't going to get the job done. So you can be the strongest man out there. You got to have a plan. There's no doubt.
That is 100% accurate. And I think as the sport evolves, the guys that just have the big hit are going to be, without an ability to transition to something different, are going to struggle. And oh man, I hate to use this example, but the match that they just shared between you and I, that match just got posted. That was all I did was try to take the big swing, and it didn't work, and it got stopped.
And it's funny how you say that. So I come to the table with a plan.
Yeah.
And it is a perfect example. I knew the very first thing I had to do was stop. I mean, I knew if I could stop you, we'd have a match somehow. But I mean, I've got to stop that hit. So it's figuring out a way to get the brakes on and get in the match. And that's just one example. I mean, whether it's stop the hit or, you might know I've got to take the hand, or I've got to do this, or I got to, you have to have that plan. So,
yeah. God, what sure. You're thinking?
Well, talking about versatility, I have a story. I remember in 2004, I went to the Michael Classic and I lost my first match. And then I went to the scorer's table, and it was Mark Zalepa and Earl Wilson. And I said to Mark, I said, I just got top rolled. I have this fucking small hand. Is there any way I can be good in this sport? And he just pointed and says, go talk to that guy over there. And he pointed to Mike. So I go over to Mike, and I said, Mike, you have any advice for someone with a small hand who's getting top rolled? And he says, grab as low as you can and go sideways. And I did that for 15 years.
Well, there you go.
And that's all I ever did.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Well, it works sometimes. It definitely does work sometimes.
A star is born.
I owe my success or lack thereof, because of my lack of flexibility in my style, to Mike. So however you want to look at it.
There you go.
Wow. Tremendous.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's fun. It's nice that you remember that. That's I'm surprised. Yeah.
Now, Mike, I got to ask you, because you over the year, I'm sure recently you've paid attention and seen some of the trash talking and showmanship that goes into the sport. How do you feel about not necessarily trash talking, but the mental aspect of arm wrestling? Because, well, I'll get your opinion and then I'll tell a quick story.
Wow. Not a big fan. Like the trash talking, it's okay to have a bit of rivalry and a little whatever. I try to stay quiet typically, because I don't like the after effects. Like, I could talk all day, and then if I show up and lose, it's, I don't like that side of it. And I think the sport's come so far. I mean, I know everybody's training so hard. I mean, if I show up and a guy beats me today, I mean, I think if I'm ready, that's the only time I have an issue. It hurts when I show up unprepared. But if I show up and I'm ready and a guy beats me, I mean, I got to be happy for him. So I try to be respectful, and I don't know. Some people are better with it than others. For me, I'm not big on the whole trash talk scene. That's just my own personal opinion, and that's just the way it is.
Well, I remember back in, I think it was North Bay at the Nationals. We pulled the North Bay at Nationals, right? way back.
Yes, we did.
And
Yep.
I remember you were really like pumping me up. You're like, Ryan, what are you doing? You look great. You're pumping me up, and you're asking me about my successes and all that stuff, and this is going on, and I'm just talking about myself, and you're eating it up, and then all of a sudden you kind of look at me and you say, well, nobody cares what you used to be able to do. And then Ryan Espy, Mike Gould, table 3. I was like, oh my God, it just blew my mind. I was devastated. I was going up to the table now and we had a match.
How'd that day go?
Not very well.
No.
I think I ended up, no, actually I think it was 2002. And ironically enough, you won the nationals. I got second place to you. I went on to the worlds, and you opted to not go to worlds, and I won the world championship.
Oh, that's right. See, that was in Illinois. That was in Illinois.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. And actually, was that match with you? Did you get second in the right or the left?
I on the left arm you mean in the national championships?
With me and you, yeah.
Yeah, I got second place to you, and actually
Greg Boyce.
I might have got third. I think I got third place.
Is that right?
And
because actually, I remember I beat you that day. Now that it does come back, I beat you that day, and I beat Greg Boyce, and you guys both went to the Worlds and won.
That's right. That's right. That's absolutely correct. And I think Greg I think he beat my left hand at that nationals, and he ended up at the Worlds in 5th place. I won, and I ended up 5th place with the right, and he won.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
And then we phoned you up after and told you all about it.
There you go. That was a fun nationals too. So good time.
Yeah,
that's great. You guys went on and won. That's for sure.
Yeah, and then the rest is kind of onward and upward. Had a similar performance the following year. And then I think it took me until 2004 to actually beat you at a national championship.
2004. That was at Portage Prairie,
Manitoba.
Yeah, you won left hand. I won the right.
And that was a good class. Greg, Len Houghton, Greg Boyce.
Absolutely. Yep. I think you won the left and I won the right, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you are correct. I'm pretty sure I got a 2nd place or a 3rd place on the right arm. Because I think actually Greg got 2nd place to you.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. So fun times, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So, going back to the tournaments, I'll tell you what I would like to see. I'll tell you something that I miss. I miss the UAL, and I shouldn't say that I miss the UAL because it's still going. Bill Collins is running it, and he does an amazing job. But I miss the tournaments Robert was putting on, and I feel like it kind of give us sort of a Mike Gould Classic feel. Like, I mean, we had a good payout, you'd get a tournament posted. We could train for an event, go to LA or Vegas or wherever it is and have a great event, win a few bucks. It was the big tournaments like that are becoming, more few all the time. It's nice to, it's great to have some of these shows and some of the events that are going on. Invitation, cards getting set up. But if you're not involved in that, I mean, what do you do? I mean, we have an incredible amount of local arm wrestling that goes on here in Southern Ontario. We're very fortunate. My brother and his wife, Becky, run a great bunch of arm wrestling. His Arm Melter series, his Arm Fight Club series. And, we're very fortunate for that on a local level. But I mean, for the big, a bigger international open tournament, nice to see. Nice to see once in a while. It gives you something to train for down the road. a good solid goal.
Yeah, I agree. Like the main draw tournament is something that, like, the big ones, the big ones seem to be a thing of the past, and WAL kind of gave everyone that different flavor, and people like it. But it's, man, those first WAL tournaments that I went to, they were amazing. And the UAL one, where they gave away the car, that was a huge event.
That was a fun time. Yeah, it was a great event. Great event. Big competition.
Yeah, and
Nice
what
to see.
an amazing finish with John and
Yes.
Michael. Yeah,
Yeah, it was so good. Yeah,
yeah.
great match. The only thing could have made that match better is if I was in there.
100%. Yeah.
But I wasn't good enough. That's the problem.
Yeah, I think you beat my left arm that day down there.
And Southern Ontario boy winning the Mustang, Dan Belfoy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was so cool. It was so cool.
Canadians have always had good luck at these events. Like Maxim won the Harley the one year down at the Harley Pull.
Yeah, that Harley Pull was a great tournament. I went it for several years.
Yeah.
Great competition there. Great matches. I kind of won it. I kind of won that event. I won it the year before it became the Harley Pull.
Ah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a great. Once they started giving out motorcycles, it got a little deeper. The classes got a little deeper.
Well, I ended up. I won my class at the Harley Pull in 2004, and I beat Christian and Harold Owens. That was the top left arm. And I went on the overall, and I got beat by Marcio in the overall. But I think I had a tougher road to the overall. But anyway, that's just an excuse. I did get a key to the bike, and it didn't start it. And then I think Dan went up next, or no, Maxim went up next, and his started the bike.
That's awesome. No, that's good wins for you. That's for sure. So this past few years, I've just really been spending, I haven't been doing a whole lot of competition, and I train a few guys. I had a pretty good club going in Toronto. Spent a lot of time training with Heidi. She did incredible. She worked so hard. She trained like every day. She becomes so strong. And then I moved to Kingston, and we got a little club going. Good bunch of guys, and one of my guys I'm training with now, Chris, he's really doing well. Most of our guys are doing well, but Chris is really he's so dedicated and focused. He trains, he trains every day. He's on track. He's doing really well. So
right on.
It's fun to share a little bit of the knowledge, and and give a little bit of guidance. It's fun. So it was a good way to give back, I suppose.
That's what we got to do. That's what we got to do to keep the sport alive.
And this next year, I've got some health issues going on. I don't tell everybody. I got a small heart issue going on and a hernia I'm getting fixed. The heart issue seems to be more of a hereditary thing. My whole family has stuff going on, and I went in a few years ago and had it repaired, and it's been acting up again this past year. So I'm waiting for a date to go in and get it fixed. And the hernia is getting fixed in September. Fingers crossed that the date doesn't change. And so hoping next year I can focus a little bit more on training and getting stronger, and looking forward to doing a little bit of arm wrestling. I don't, just whatever comes up, really more or less.
Well, if you're looking for a match, you don't have to look too far. Just give me a call.
Sounds good. I'm sure we'll meet up. That's for sure. And I'd be glad to.
I'm curious how you guys met up in Manitoba last week. Like what? At a truck stop? Like how did that happen? Did you contact Ryan when you were in town? Like, is that how it happened?
I spent the night in Brandon, Manitoba, and I left Brandon and I was heading east towards Portage La Prairie. I was on my way down to Minneapolis in the U.S. And it's funny, Ryan just sent me a message confirming our interview here today. And so I thought, well, I'll shoot him back a message. I'm going through Portage la Prairie in half an hour. And his schedule opened up. So I stopped at a truck stop and he come out. We talked for, it was pretty brief, probably 15 minutes, a nice visit. And we carried on. So.
Nice.
Yeah.
So there was no arm wrestling involved, unfortunately.
No arm wrestling. No arm wrestling.
Got it.
So.
I could have thrown a table in the back of the truck and taken it out to the truck stop, but
if we'd have had, if we'd had a little bit more time or something, I think that would have been a great idea to play around a bit. There's been a couple times it's been fun. I've had the opportunity. I travel all over North America with my work trucking. I met up with a guy in the U.S. or out of Texas, Brian Sitton, tank, super strong. He brought a table out one day. We pulled for a bit, had a great workout. Super nice guy, and he's training nonstop. He's, doing a great job. And then I was out in, I believe it was Kamloops or something a year ago, I guess, and Angela Christine brought out a table and we pulled for half an hour or something. So it's fun. Every now and then we get the opportunity to hook up with somebody and train a little bit. It makes it fun, but it's hard to have the time. You're usually on your way somewhere.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, we're at the hour mark, brother.
Well, I appreciate it, guys, and it's been nice chatting with you, and look forward to seeing you down the road. We'll definitely see you at a tournament, that's for sure.
Yeah, and we appreciate you coming on the show. Episode 50, it's a milestone, and one of the things we need to mention is we're taking a little bit of a break because schedules are just getting crazy this summer, and so Crossfire is going to go on a bit of a hiatus, hopefully to return in the not so distant future.
Very nice, very nice. Well, it's been a great show, and there you go. I guess 50 it is, I guess. So if you can't be first, you might as well be last.
Well, you might not be last.
Yeah. It's been nice, and I appreciate it, guys. I really do.
Yeah, and Gabi, it's been a pleasure, man. And we will reunite at some point in the not so distant future to fire it back up again, I'm sure.
Absolutely, dude. Yeah, been a privilege and an honor. And Mike, I wish you the best with the hernia operation. I'm sure it's routine, but I'll keep my fingers crossed for you anyway.
Yeah,
appreciate that. Looking forward to getting that fixed. It's been giving me grief for a few years, and look forward to getting the heart ticking right, and give me my energy back.
Right on.
Awesome.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot,
gentlemen.
Guys.
Enjoy your day, and we'll talk to you very soon.
Take care, guys.
Thanks, guys.